Last week, I watched my 21st birthday turn into a freaking startup launch party for my cousin Ethan. Yeah, you heard that right. There were 21 candles on the cake. My name was never mentioned. Everyone was too busy clapping for Ethan's new app, something about AI-driven productivity, which honestly just looked like a glorified to-do list. But hey, investors threw $2 million at it, so of course the entire family lost their damn minds. Meanwhile, I was sitting there in an old hoodie and jeans stained with grease from work, watching Ethan give a TED talk in my living room while wearing a tailored navy suit. I bought my own birthday cake, by the way, with my last $30 from fixing scooters at a tech garage downtown. I sat on the edge of the couch looking like background decor. No happy birthday Ava, no congrats on making it to 21, just Ethan this, Ethan that. Aunt Jill teared up. Uncle Derek said this was the beginning of a new era. Someone actually raised a toast to our golden boy, and I swear my dad smiled in a way he hasn't smiled at me since, well, ever. I looked down at the frosting melting under the candles. No one noticed it was shaped into a gear and a little robot, something I thought was cute since robotics is my thing. I made it myself. No one cared. Ethan stood right in front of the birthday banner, my banner, like it wasn't even there. Mom had covered the rest of it with silver congrats streamers that morning. She said it's cleaner this way. Cleaner, right, like erasing your daughter from her own damn birthday is just spring cleaning. It hit me then they never saw me. Not once. Not when I got accepted into MIT's robotics program. Not when I built my first prototype from scrap parts at 16. Not even when I won regional science fairs and brought home medals that somehow ended up in a miscellaneous drawer while Ethan's participation trophies got shelves. And you know what? I'd had enough. So while everyone clapped and cheered and cried about Ethan's IPO dreams, I stood up. My chair scraped loud across the hardwood, finally louder than the applause. Interesting timing for this party, I said. The whole room went awkwardly silent. You could feel everyone clench. My mum did her tight, polite smile, the one she uses when she's 2 seconds from a breakdown, but still wants to seem in control. Ava, honey, let's not... Not what, Mom, I snapped. Not mention that this was supposed to be my birthday party, or that you all forgot it was even my day. My dad stepped in, voice already turning into his I'm the authority tone. You're being dramatic. No, not this time. I stared straight at Ethan, who for once looked genuinely uncomfortable. Did you know I got into MIT? I asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. Full ride, robotics, top of my class. He blinked. Everyone else looked at each other like I'd just started speaking Klingon. Of course they didn't know, because no one freaking asked. I didn't wait for them to respond. I just grabbed my bag and left. Walked straight out the front door, no coat, no shoes, just rage. The cold hit my face like reality, and for the first time in a long time I felt real. Not invisible, not erased, just awake. 5 minutes later, I was sitting on a bus bench trying not to cry when my phone buzzed. It was Lexi. Did you do it? I texted back with shaking fingers. I walked out. I'm done, she replied in 2 seconds. Spare room's ready. Let's blow up your life properly. God, I love that girl. So yeah, that was last week. The day I left the family that never wanted me. The day I realized being tolerated is not the same as being loved. That was also the day I stopped being quiet. They pushed me out. Fine. They're about to find out what happens when the daughter they tried to forget becomes the one holding the detonator. This morning, I woke up in Lexi's spare room. Well, technically, it's her laundry storage office turned guest space. But to me, it felt like a goddamn palace. There were no birthday balloons, no streamers, just peace. 3 days since I walked out on my family. 3 days without hearing you're being dramatic or your brother's doing something important. 3 days of silence I didn't realize I needed. It was almost too quiet. Like my brain didn't know how to process not being constantly gaslit. Lexi knocked on the door with her usual no-filter vibe. You alive in there, or should I call a morgue? I'm up, I groaned. Good. Your coffee's getting cold and your interview outfit's getting wrinkled. Right, the Urban Grind barista interview. Because while Ethan's getting VC funding and press coverage, I'm out here hoping for minimum wage plus tips. I smoothed out the blazer Lexi loaned me. It was 2 sizes too big, but hey, better than grease-stained overalls. I burned my tongue on the coffee, but didn't care. It grounded me. Something about the pain felt realer than the years of emotional numbness. Lexi looked me dead in the eye. Don't bring them up today. I nodded. But of course I was already thinking about them, like an itch under my skin. I kept replaying my dad's face from the party. The way he said I was embarrassing the family. The way he never even asked about MIT. It wasn't just disappointment. It was betrayal. Quiet, chronic parental betrayal. I shook it off. Interview first, breakdown later. The Urban Grind was this warm little coffee shop on the corner of Cedar and Maple, all exposed brick and plants in mason jars. It smelled like espresso and cinnamon and ambition. The manager, Sarah, glanced at my resume, then at me. You've got great experience, but there's a gap. No family references. I didn't blink. I prefer to keep my personal life separate from work. She tilted her head like she got it. Fair enough. When can you start? I left with a training schedule and a job offer. It wasn't a robotics lab, but it was mine. Mine. And then the universe did its usual thing, where it gives you one win, then drop kicks you emotionally. Ethan was leaning on my car, his perfectly gelled hair, that smug, I'm trying to look chill posture. The only thing missing was the usual entourage of family members praising him like a messiah. I almost turned around. Instead, I walked up keys ready. Nice ride, he said, tapping the side of my dented second-hand Honda. Better than walking. What do you want, Ethan? He shifted like he was uncomfortable. You're still my cousin. Funny, you didn't remember that during your birthday/my birthday party. His mouth opened, then shut, like a broken faucet. Typical Ethan move. I didn't know they were going to do that, he muttered. I told them not to make it a thing. Oh, so this is you trying... He rubbed the back of his neck. Nervous tick. One I knew since we were kids. Look, he started. They're worried about you. They want you to come home. I laughed. Not politely, not sweetly. A full, bitter laugh that probably startled the pigeons on the sidewalk. Home, that place hasn't felt like home since Mom told me I was a distraction from your potential. He went quiet. I leaned in, tired but done with sugarcoating. Did you know they promised to pay for my college too? Funny how the money disappeared right around the time your startup launched. Ethan actually flinched. I didn't know. Ava, seriously, I had no idea. Exactly. You never know, because you never had to. Must be nice living in a bubble, padded with praise and other people's sacrifices. My phone buzzed. Grandma Margaret. Are you safe? I texted back. I'm okay, with Lexi. Her reply was almost immediate. Good. There's something you need to know. Can you meet me at the park tomorrow, 10 a.m.? The usual bench. And then background static, my mum's voice. I have to go, Grandma typed. Tomorrow, don't be late. I stared at the screen, heart racing. Lexi was already scrolling through her phone when I walked in. That looked intense. Your ex-family again. Grandma wants to meet. Lexi raised an eyebrow. That's either really good or really shady. She's not like them. She's always seen me. Then go. But no matter what she says, you're not going back. I know. I tried to sleep that night, but couldn't. I kept thinking about all the birthdays I spent watching Ethan unwrap gifts while I got hand-me-down books. The trophies I won that no one clapped for. The scholarships I earned that no one even mentioned. It wasn't just that they forgot me. They erased me, over time, like I was never there to begin with. The next morning, Riverside Park was cold, and the bench was somehow more faded than I remembered. Grandma was already sitting there, a thick manila envelope in her lap. She looked tired, older somehow, like this had been weighing on her too long. You look like you haven't slept, she said gently. Been busy. She handed me the envelope. Her fingers were shaking. Open it. Inside were documents, financial records, bank statements, letters. I flipped through them, the air knocked out of me with each page. This is my trust fund. Grandma nodded, face tight. Your grandfather set up trust funds for you and Ethan. Equal amounts. But your father, he started moving your money into Ethan's account. Slowly, over years. I felt my stomach drop. All those times they said they couldn't afford my tuition. They lied, Grandma said. I tried to stop it, But when I confronted Derek, he threatened to cut me out, said I was too emotional to understand the family's future. My hands were shaking now. The math was horrifying. Over $200,000 gone, used to pay for Ethan's private schools, his startup costs, his car. They'd taken everything. My phone buzzed again. Sophie, my cousin, the only one in the family who never bought into the Ethan cult. "We need to talk. Found something in Uncle D's study. You won't believe it. Tonight," I looked up at Grandma. "This isn't just theft. This is betrayal." "It's both," she said, "and it's time they answered for it." I nodded slowly. This wasn't about being bitter anymore. It was about justice, about truth, about reclaiming what they tried to bury. I looked at the park trees swaying above us and felt something shift in my chest. They thought they'd silenced me. They were wrong. This time I wasn't just walking away. I was coming back with fire. Lexi and I met up with Sophie that night in the back corner of her bookstore after hours. It still smelled like fresh paper and dust, and whatever candle she always had burning that was supposed to smell like rain on old books, but really just smelled like vanilla and ambition. Sophie paced while Lexi sat on the counter eating jelly beans out of a mason jar. I leaned against the bookshelf labelled Mystery, which felt ironic. Sophie finally stopped pacing and pulled out her phone. Okay. So I was helping Mom clean the attic and noticed Uncle Derek's old filing cabinet was still up there, like the one he swore he threw out when he renovated his office. What was in it, I asked, already bracing myself. She handed me a folder. This. Inside more financial docs, transfer records, cross-account deposits. Some were handwritten, some were official, some looked suspiciously doctored. And then there was the kicker, a scanned letter from my grandfather, a letter addressed to me, dated 2 days before he died. "Ava, I want you to know I set up something for you. I know how the others look at Ethan, but I see you. I see your potential, your fire. This fund is for your future, your inventions, your independence. Love, Grandpa." I stared at the paper for a long time. "You okay?" Lexi asked, quieter than usual. "No, but I'm not falling apart either." Sophie looked nervous. Uncle D is already freaking out. I think he noticed I was in his files. He started shredding stuff. Mom said he's been on edge since the birthday party. "He knows I'm looking," I said flatly. Lexi narrowed her eyes. "So what now?" I looked down at the paper in my hands, then up at the both of them. Now we fight back. The next few days were a blur. Between my barista training, digging through legal blogs, and meeting Grandma in random coffee shops to make copies of every document, I barely had time to breathe. I slept like 4 hours a night, powered by espresso and spite. Lexi helped build a secure digital folder to back everything up. Sophie handled the family tree connections, who got what, who got screwed, who unknowingly benefited. We even found out Aunt Carol's kids had their college funds redirected too. This wasn't just my story. It was all of us. That Friday I got home from my shift to find Ethan sitting on the curb outside Lexi's place. "Again," I groaned. "Seriously? You need to stop lurking like a Netflix villain." He stood up, rubbing his hands together. He looked rough, dark circles, unshaved, and his usual confidence was cracked. "I know about the trust fund," he said. I stared at him. "So you've been spying?" "No," Grandma told me. I let out a slow breath. "Then you also know you've been living on money that was never yours." "I didn't ask for it, Ava." "No, you just benefited from it, while I worked weekends fixing Roombas to pay for textbooks." He winced. "I didn't know." "You keep saying that like it makes a difference." He ran a hand through his hair. "I want to make it right. I talked to my lawyer. I can start transferring it back. All of it, plus interest." I looked at him for a long moment. "This isn't about the money anymore, Ethan." "Then what is it?" "It's about the years I spent being invisible. It's about watching everyone applaud you for things I did first. It's about knowing I was never the problem. They were." He swallowed hard. "I'm hosting the family reunion next weekend," he said. I raised a brow. "You—" He nodded. "At the lake house." I blinked. "The lake house where Grandpa signed the original trust documents. Yeah, I'm going to announce Dad's financial moves, everything, with your help." I crossed my arms. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm done being their puppet." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just walked back into the house with one thought looping in my head. If Ethan was really ready to burn it all down, I'd bring the gasoline. Grandma, Lexi, Sophie and I met in Grandma's sunroom the next morning to plan. I still can't believe how deep this goes, Sophie whispered, scanning the wall of documents we'd pinned to a giant corkboard. We looked like conspiracy theorists, but it was working. Shell companies, tax evasion, trust violations, forged signatures Lexi listed off like she was reading a grocery list. They built a freaking empire out of stolen futures. Grandma pointed to a stack of letters. Your mother's handwriting is all over these. She was the one doing the actual transfers. I stared at a document that had my name misspelled on a fake withdrawal form. She always said I was too rebellious to trust with money, or too smart to manipulate, Grandma said gently. I didn't cry. I was too tired for that. Instead, I traced my fingers along the map of lies they built and felt the anger settle into something colder, something stronger. Resolve. Sophie tapped her screen. We live stream this, we email the backup folder to every relative, and we time it so they can't run. Ryan might try to delete the evidence, Lexi said. Let him try, I replied. We've got 10 backups. Grandma leaned forward. But Ava, what if they threaten you? I smirked. Then I record that too. That night I sat in Lexi's kitchen alone, drinking herbal tea because I couldn't take another cup of coffee without vibrating out of my skin. I scrolled through photos on my phone. Me at 10 holding up my first Lego robot. Me at 14 next to Ethan at a science fair. I'd won first place. He didn't even place. But guess who got the write-up in the family newsletter? I was never supposed to succeed, not by their rules. So I stopped playing their game. They wanted a golden child. Fine. But they forgot I was forged in silence. I grew up in the shadow, but that's where you learn to see in the dark, where you learn patience, where you wait. And then you strike. My phone buzzed. Sophie? Uncle D's shredding again. Just burned a bunch of papers in the fireplace. I got pics. Lexi walked in and leaned over my shoulder. You ready for this? I didn't answer right away. 'Cause no, I wasn't ready. I was starving for it. The reunion was supposed to be casual. That's what the email said. Nothing fancy, just a simple weekend to reconnect as a family. Yeah, sure. There's nothing casual about a lakeside estate with catered hors d'oeuvres, a string quartet, and valet parking. Ethan had clearly gone all out, which, okay, was smart. If we were going to burn the whole legacy down, might as well do it with everyone dressed in linen. I pulled up to the lake house on Saturday afternoon, parked my rust bucket between 2 Teslas, and just sat there for a second, breathing. I hadn't been here since I was 12. Last time, Grandpa let me sit in his study while he tinkered with old tech. He used to call me Circuit Girl. Said I had wires in my brain and fire in my heart. I believed him. No one else did. Now I was back, and the place still looked perfect. That kind of curated perfection that covers up 1,000 buried secrets. Lexi met me at the entrance with Sophie in tow. Lexi wore sunglasses like a spy. Sophie had her laptop in a tote bag like it was a holy relic. Me, I had my hair up and my phone set to record. Game on. Inside, it was the usual cast of family characters. Aunt Carol fake hugging everyone. Uncle Derek doing his politician smile. My mum still polished like a magazine cover, laughing way too hard at whatever Ethan was saying. She saw me. Her eyes narrowed for just a second, tight smile, quick adjustment of her scarf, but she didn't come over. Instead, she turned back to Ethan and kept laughing. Sophie whispered, "She knows something's up." "Let her," I muttered. "She has no idea what's coming." We didn't start the show right away. We mingled, watched, waited. Lexi called it emotional reconnaissance. I called it holding back the urge to scream in public. Then Ethan tapped a glass with a fork. Classic. "Thank you all for coming," he said, standing in front of the massive fireplace like he was hosting a TED Talk again. I wanted this to be more than just a reunion. I wanted it to be a reckoning. Whispers, raised eyebrows. My mom froze mid-sip of her wine. He looked at her. "Mom, Dad, this part's for you." He gestured toward the wall-mounted TV. Sophie hit a button on her laptop. The screen lit up. Documents, spreadsheets, transfer records, signatures. Every stolen dollar. Every doctored form. Every email that proved they took what was mine, what was ours, and funneled it straight into Ethan's startup, their private school tuition, their fancy cars. Silence. Then confusion, then chaos. Uncle Steve yelled something about his investment fund. Aunt Carol started crying. Cousin Thomas asked if this meant his medical loans had been paid with my college money. My mom stood voice sharp and shrill. This is ridiculous. Ethan didn't flinch. This is truth. And she pointed at me, you manipulated him into this. You've always been jealous. I stepped forward. Jealous of what? Being invisible. Watching you rewrite every memory, so Ethan was always the star. She tried to laugh it off, but it sounded brittle. You're overreacting. We were protecting the family legacy. You were protecting your control, I said. Big difference. My dad finally spoke, his voice low and venomous. You think this little show will destroy us? You don't understand how this works, Ava. We are the legacy. No, Dad, I said, calmly pulling out my phone. You were the fraud. I hit play. His voice, clear, from the study. A recording from the night he cornered Grandma. I moved the money, so what? She doesn't know how to use it. She'd waste it. Ethan needs it. If she finds out, then we bury it. We always bury it. Gasps, real audible gasps. Grandma stood up at the back of the room, her voice steady despite the tension. You buried your conscience a long time ago, Derek. Everyone turned. She knew, I said, nodding to her, and she kept the proof. She's the reason we have any of this. My mum's face cracked like a porcelain plate. You don't know what you're doing, she said. I walked closer. Yeah, I do. I'm telling the truth. Something you both forgot how to do. They looked so small now, smaller than I'd ever seen them. My whole life I'd been terrified of disappointing them, of not being enough. Turns out they were the disappointment all along. Ethan stepped up beside me. We're filing for an audit and a full legal review. The assets, the trust funds, everything. My dad laughed, mean and bitter. You'd destroy your own parents. You already did that to yourselves, he said. We're just turning the lights on. Someone clapped. I don't know who started it. Maybe Sophie, maybe Grandma. But it spread. And it wasn't for them. It was for us. For me. After the fallout, the cops came. Not for arrests yet, but for statements. Uncle Steve had apparently already contacted an attorney. The Financial Crimes Unit would be digging deeper. Lexi and I slipped out the back door where the lake shimmered under the fading sun. You okay? She asked, handing me a cupcake. I nodded, unwrapping it slowly. I think so. You did it. We did it. She bumped her shoulder against mine. So, what now? I looked at the water, then at the reflection of the lake house, no longer perfect. The windows looked like they were frowning. Now we start over, with honesty. Lexi grinned. Sounds boring. Yeah, I said, but boring sounds really good right now. She laughed, tossed a rock into the lake, and watched the ripples. Behind us, the family that had spent decades building lies was finally crumbling. And I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad either. I just felt done. But in the best way. The courthouse smelled like old coffee floor wax and the faint bitterness of broken promises. I sat in the hallway outside courtroom 3B, bouncing my leg while Lexi scrolled through her phone next to me. My parents were inside, in orange jumpsuits. That part never gets old. It had taken months of depositions, financial audits, testimony, and enough legal jargon to fry my brain. But here we were, final sentencing. Sophie sat on my other side, flipping through a notebook. She looked more exhausted than I'd ever seen her, but there was this quiet satisfaction in her eyes, like justice had finally stopped being theoretical. Ethan hadn't said much all morning. He was standing by the window, arms folded, staring out at the parking lot. I could tell he was thinking about what came after all this. The company, the name, the scorched earth. Me, I was thinking about how I'd gotten here. How a birthday party that wasn't mine turned into this giant reckoning. How walking out of that house was the best and hardest thing I'd ever done. The bailiff opened the doors. Court is reconvened. Lexi gave my hand a squeeze. Go get your closure, girl. Inside, my mum wouldn't look at me. My dad kept trying to meet my eyes, like maybe if I looked at him long enough, I'd remember being his little girl instead of the girl he stole a future from. Nope, not happening. The judge didn't waste time. He read the list of charges like he was narrating the final season of a very dramatic Netflix show. Fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, trust violation. I listened without blinking. The sentence: 15 years eligible for parole after 8. Financial restitution, complete forfeiture of all remaining family-controlled assets. That included the lake house, the company, and Sweet Karma, the car they bought with my college money. They were escorted out in silence. No final words. No apology. Honestly, that was fine. I didn't need their words. I had the truth. And now the law did too. Afterward, reporters swarmed the steps. I kept my head down, but Sophie stopped me. You should say something. I turned around, looked at the cameras, and just said this: they tried to erase me. Now they'll be remembered for exactly what they are. That was it. No tears, no speeches. Just truth. Later that week, I got a letter from the Department of Justice. The restitution funds had been finalised. Every person who got scammed by my parents, they were getting their money back. Aunt Carol's kids' college fully funded. Thomas' medical bills wiped. Uncle Steve reinvested, with interest. And me, well, my trust fund was restored, with every cent, plus damages. The number looked surreal, like Monopoly money, but it was real. My name was on it this time. No forged signature, no parental oversight, just mine. Lexi threw a mini celebration in the apartment balloons cupcakes and a giant sticky note on the fridge that said, "Independent as fuck." "You know what you should do with it," she said, mouthful of frosting. "Buy a flamethrower and set fire to everything I offered." "Close, start your own lab." I blinked. "What?" "You've been building bots in garages since you were 13. You're basically Tony Stark, but hotter and more emotionally available." I laughed. For the first time in a while, it didn't feel like a defense mechanism. "Seriously, Ava, you know what the best revenge is?" "Success." "No. Empowering girls like you so they never need revenge in the first place." That shut me up. So I did it. I applied to a local accelerator program, pitched my robotic startup focused on affordable AI tech for public schools, and got accepted. MIT sent me a letter saying they'd still honour my deferred enrolment, but honestly, I didn't want it anymore. I didn't need their name. I had my own. A few months later, we held our first workshop for high school girls interested in engineering. I stood in front of the room, watching their faces light up as we powered on a little robot built from $40 of recycled parts. One of them, maybe 15, raised her hand and asked, "How did you get into this?" I thought about lying, about making it sound neat and tidy, but I didn't. I got tired of waiting for permission. That was all I said. That night, I stood in my tiny office surrounded by prototypes and posters and way too many tangled cords, and stared at the photo on my desk. Grandpa and me, lake house, me holding a screwdriver like it was a wand. I whispered I kept the fire going. No tears, just peace. Ethan and I still talk. He handed over the company voluntarily, rebranded it, paid off every debt tied to our parents. He lives in a small apartment now, doesn't take a salary, says he wants to rebuild from zero. I believe him. We're not best friends, but we're something new, honest at least. And Grandma, she's the chair of my advisory board now. Only because I've got decades of experience and zero patience for BS, she told me. She brings lemon cake to meetings and still calls me circuit girl. One day she handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten old paper. It was from Grandpa, a second one, hidden in his old desk. "You were never invisible. You were just ahead of your time." I read it twice, then again, folded it carefully and put it in my drawer next to the legal documents that burned the lie down. My parents sent me one letter from prison. Just one. No apology, just a vague "we hope someday you understand." I didn't write back. There's nothing to understand about people who gamble with their child's future and call it protection. They made their choice. And I made mine. I chose to stop asking for space at their table and built my own damn lab. They chose to build their empire on lies. I built mine on truth. And you know what? It holds. It was raining the day I walked through the gates of the lake house for the last time. No family, no drama, no hidden cameras or files stuffed in coat linings. Just me, an umbrella, and the crunch of gravel under my boots. The new owners had emailed me polite, curious, apologetic, in that we know this place has a past kind of way, and asked if I wanted to pick up anything that might have been left behind. I wasn't planning to, but something pulled me back. Maybe it was the way the place still whispered with ghosts. Not the scary kind, the emotional kind. The lake was grey and quiet. The house, once buzzing with holiday fights and fake smiles, stood still, almost relieved to be empty. I stepped into the study. It hadn't changed much, still smelled like leather and dust and whatever cologne Grandpa used to wear. There was a small box on the desk with my name on it, sharp black ink in Grandpa's handwriting. I opened it. Inside a fishing trophy, one of his, a tiny robot pin, and a flash drive. No note, just memories. I sat down and plugged the flash drive into my laptop, half expecting more financial data or dusty legal docs. Instead, there were videos. Old ones. Me at age 9, building my first robot out of cereal boxes. Him narrating behind the camera like I was on Discovery Channel. There she goes, future engineer of America. You got it, Ava? Just needs a little wire twist. There it is. I hadn't heard his voice in years. It hit me like a punch to the chest, warm, steady, proud. There were hours of it, years. He saved everything. The last clip was just him talking to the camera in the workshop. If you're watching this kid, it means they probably didn't do right by you. I wish I'd stayed longer, but I hope I left you enough to fight with. You're the smartest person I ever knew, and that includes me. You're not built like them. That's your superpower. I sat there for a long time after that. Didn't cry. Just let the silence settle. Then I packed the box, walked back to my car, and didn't look back. A year later, I was standing on stage at a small tech conference in Portland. Not MIT, not TED, not some flashy startup showcase, but it was mine. The panel was called Founders Without Funding, Building from Scraps, and I'd been invited as the keynote speaker. Yeah, me. The girl they once said was too emotional, too rebellious, too impractical. The girl who was never the future of the family. I looked out at the crowd, a sea of tired faces, curious ones, some skeptical, some hopeful, all real. I didn't talk about revenge. I talked about building something when no one believes in you, about how my parents thought love meant control, and how I learned that control isn't love, it's fear dressed up in logic. I told them how I built robots out of trash, how I rebuilt myself out of spite, how I took the worst thing that ever happened to me and turned it into blueprints. And when I was done, people clapped. Not fake claps, not family performance claps. The real kind. The kind that says we see you now. Afterward, a girl maybe 19 came up to me. Big brown eyes, hoodie sleeves pulled down over her hands. Your talk made me feel like I'm not crazy for wanting more. You're not, I said. You're just early. She smiled. I want to build things too, but my mum says engineering isn't for girls. She told me to be realistic. I looked her dead in the eye. Screw realistic. She laughed, a real startled, bubbling laugh. I gave her my card and told her to apply to our summer workshop. She did. 2 months later, she built a robot that could sort recycling by shape and texture using low-cost sensors. We featured it on our website. She cried when she saw her name on the homepage. That's the legacy, not revenge. Just doors opened wider. One night I got a letter from Ethan, handwritten, weird in a good way. You were right. They broke us. I'm still figuring out who I am without their script in my head. Sometimes I wish we'd grown up in a different family. But then again, maybe we turned out the way we did because we had to learn the hard way. I wrote back. Told him I didn't forgive them. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I was done letting them live rent-free in my head. And I was proud of him, even if it took him too long to show up. As for my parents, they sent another letter, 2 years in, typed this time. Still no apology. Just a bunch of words about reflection and misunderstood intentions. I didn't respond. I'd already said everything I needed to say. The court did the rest. Closure doesn't come in envelopes anyway. It comes in moments, like watching a girl realize she's allowed to want more, like turning off your phone and not feeling panic, like waking up without bracing for someone to tell you you're too much, like finally realizing that family isn't who raised you, it's who shows up when your world's on fire with a bucket of water and a cupcake. Lexi and I still live together, though we upgraded to a loft above our workshop. Sophie visits every other Sunday with her weird vegan muffins. Grandma runs her own podcast now, no joke. Truth with Margaret is top 10 on a retirement living blog. She says I started a fire, but she kept the spark alive when I didn't even know it existed. Last week, I went to a school career fair to talk to middle schoolers about engineering. One of them asked if I was rich now. I said emotionally hell yeah. They laughed. Then one kid raised his hand and said, "Are you mad at your parents?" I thought about it. Thought about the girl I used to be shaking at a birthday party that was never hers, watching candles melt on a cake no one cared about. Thought about the courtroom, the silence, the rebuilding. No, I told him, I'm not mad anymore. Why not? Because I won. He nodded like that made sense. And maybe in some way it did. My name's Ava. I was the daughter no one saw coming, the one they underestimated, the one they tried to erase. And now I build machines that think for themselves. I teach girls to speak louder. I name robots after women no one talks about in textbooks. And I never ever let anyone tell me I don't belong again. Some stories don't end with revenge. Some end with peace. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they end with power, the kind you build yourself from the ground up. One wire, one truth, one unapologetic step at a time. Story 2. You ever get blindsided so hard it knocks the breath out of you? Yeah, that was my 29th birthday. My name's Riley. I had no idea that blowing out candles would be the last warm memory I'd have in the house I called home for nearly 6 years. Moments before everything shattered, I was laughing, wine glass in hand. My best friend Cass had just made me snort laugh with her impression of my dad trying to dance to Drake. Then my mom handed me a gift. "Open it, sweetheart," she said with a shaky smile. "We're all so excited." It was a glossy silver envelope tied with a ribbon. Looked like something fancy, like a check for a surprise vacation or something. I should have known better. The living room was packed. My cousin Noelle sat like a porcelain doll on the edge of the sofa, legs crossed like we were at a job interview. My brother Eli leaned against the fireplace, arms folded, eyes darting anywhere but at me. Even Grandpa had dressed up in his best blazer. Something was off. I opened the envelope. Legal paper, bold type. Notice of eviction. I remember blinking once, twice. I thought it was a joke, some twisted family prank. "What is this?" My voice cracked mid-sentence. Mum reached out, her eyes glassy. "Riley, honey, we were trying to find the right time to—" "You're kicking me out," I interrupted, standing up so fast the couch wobbled, "of my house." Technically, Noelle chimed in like she was reading from a script. "The deed is still under your parents' names. It's their legal property." My blood turned to ice. "You're seriously quoting deed law at me right now?" Noelle flipped her perfectly blown-out hair over her shoulder. "I'm just helping everyone make smart decisions." Smart for who exactly? "You knew about this," I turned to Eli, but he couldn't even meet my eyes. Typical. Cass stood frozen near the window, her expression unreadable. "Riley," Dad said quietly, "we've had some concerns." "About what?" "That I put in new plumbing, redid the floors, modernized the kitchen without making it look like an IKEA catalogue." Noelle cut in again. "There were some complaints, noise, unauthorized construction, questionable work." "Lies." My voice was shaking. "And you—" I pointed at my mom. "Let her do this on my birthday." "You have 30 days to vacate," she whispered. Cass finally moved, storming across the room. "You've got to be kidding me. Riley's done everything by the book. I've seen every permit, every signed paper, but my family's silent. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I just stood there and said one word, out. They left. Noelle last purse on her arm, smirking like she'd won a game I didn't know we were playing. Cass stayed. We sat on the couch. The envelope mocked me from the coffee table. "I think she's behind this," I said. Cass didn't hesitate. "Noelle's been gunning for this place since your renovation photos started blowing up online. And I'm going to prove it." The next morning I stared at my phone. Missed calls from Mom, Eli, not a single message from Noelle. No surprise there. "You need to eat," Cass said, sliding a plate toward me. "I need answers." I called my mom and hit speaker. "Riley, thank God." "Save it. What exactly did Noelle tell you?" A pause. She said you'd been cutting corners, that you were behind on bills, that you falsified permits. Did she show you anything? She had documents and a report from the neighbourhood association. There is no neighbourhood association, I snapped. Cass-mouthed liar. You believed her without talking to me. She sounded convincing, and Eli said, oh, so now Eli's an expert on permits. Please don't turn this into a fight. You already did, I said flatly. Send me every document she gave you. I hung up. Cass gave me a look. We need to dig. I pulled up my laptop. Start with public records, I said. Let's find out what Noelle's been planting. 20 minutes later, Eli texted me, meet me at the brew station in 30. We need to talk. The brew station smelled like burnt espresso and cold apologies. Eli sat at our usual booth nursing a black coffee like it held answers. You knew, I said, sliding in across from him. He looked wrecked. I found out 2 days ago. Mom and Dad made me swear not to tell you. And Noelle? She's meeting with developers. She thinks this house is a gold mine. My stomach dropped. She wants to sell it. She's been feeding Mom and Dad all this crap to make them think you're in over your head. And they bought it. She showed them doctored complaints, fake violations, even faked a photo of a pipe leak. I let that sink in. My own family handed my house to a liar because she played the part of the calm, collected consultant. She's got a plan, I said. And she's marrying into money, Eli added. Her fiancé's family owns a development firm. They want to level the whole block. I clenched my jaw. She wants my house as the crown jewel. I opened an email from Mom. Attachments. Scanned copies of everything Noelle had shown them. The dates are off, I whispered. The signatures are fake. You can prove it. I looked up. I will. Outside the coffee shop, Cass waited with her laptop and that fire in her eyes she always got before finals week. Her fiancé's company is registered under his dad's name, she said. But guess who filed the permit request for redevelopment? Who? Noelle. 2 months ago. I stared at the screen. She filed for demolition of your house. Before the eviction notice, I whispered. Game on, Cass said. And just like that, the countdown began. 2 weeks until Noelle's wedding. 2 weeks until the biggest lie of my life gets burned down with truth. This time I'm not backing down. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at the kitchen counter staring at the eviction notice. Same spot where I used to drink coffee after painting till midnight. Same view I had while gutting the pantry alone. The walls felt like they were listening, betrayed just like me. Cass came downstairs, rubbing her eyes. You need rest. I need receipts. By 7 a.m. we were in the car, headed to the city records office. Cass's friend Liz worked there, data analyst by title, chaos, queen by nature. She welcomed us like we were planning a heist. Here's everything filed on your block in the past 12 months, she said, dumping a folder onto the table, including 3 proposals from a group called Eldon Developments. I flipped through one. It was surreal. A digital rendering of my house flattened, replaced by glass condos and a rooftop pool. This was filed 2 months ago, I said, pointing to the timestamp. Keep going, Liz said already, opening her second Red Bull. Signatures. I scanned the bottom. My parents. What the hell, I whispered. They signed off on this. They approved a survey, not the sale. But it gave Noelle enough to file early-stage redevelopment plans. Cass leaned in, notarized by Marcus Vane. I blinked. That's Noelle's dad. So now her entire family was in on this. My phone buzzed. A text from Eli Noelle's at Mom and Dad's with a contractor. Talking about remodeling. You need to get here. Now. I didn't knock. I stormed through the front door like I owned the place. Noelle was mid-sentence in the kitchen, gesturing toward a mock-up on her iPad. This wall comes down and you've got a clean line of sight to a wrecking crew, I said. She turned, not even flinching. Riley, we're all just trying to move forward. With my house. My parents stood awkwardly by the fridge, both looking like they'd been caught sneaking out of church. I slammed the city paperwork on the counter. You signed this. You let her file permits. You let her lie to you. Dad picked up the document pale. We thought it was just exploratory. She submitted demo plans. These aren't exploratory. These are goodbye letters to my foundation. Noelle's voice dripped honey. It's not personal, Riley. The neighborhood's changing. This is inevitable. Inevitable, I snapped. You're selling our family's story to a developer with a pool fetish. She sighed. You're emotional. And you're a fraud. The contractor backed away, clearly rethinking his career choices. "Get out," I said to Noelle. "I have every right to be here." "You do?" I said, pulling out my phone. "Because according to the city, submitting permits using a notarization from your own father is a conflict of interest, especially when your fiancé's company stands to profit." Her eyes darkened. "You're bluffing." I opened my email. "Oh, am I? Because I have copies. And a meeting with a reporter in 2 days." Mum finally spoke. "Riley, stop. You don't need to destroy the family over this." I looked at her, stunned. "Destroy the family you already did." I left, not in tears, not in rage, in clarity. By that night, Eli and Cass were back at my kitchen table. "We've got a week until the wedding," Eli said. "After that, the papers go through. She's accelerating everything." "She's afraid," I said, "which means we're close." Cass pulled out a USB. Liz sent more files. Meeting notes from the Planning Commission. Guess who made public comments advocating for increased density and vertical development on historic lots? Noelle, I guessed. Cass nodded, 3 times, always using different surnames. "And her fiancé," I asked. "Filed financing paperwork under a holding company, but it traces back to Eldon." Every document was another stitch in her web of lies. But we had the scissors now. 3 days later we found our wild card, Leah. Val Noelle's fiancé had a sister, and she did not like Noelle. Eli made contact through an old mutual friend. Leah agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. She showed up in business casual war armor, sleek blazer flat shoes, dead eyes. "Why should I help you?" she asked. I showed her the permit plans. "My parents think I'm a monster," I said. "Because your future sister-in-law made it her mission to get me evicted for a real estate flip." Leah stared at the papers. "This is your house?" "Yes." She exhaled. "Figures." "You know something?" She nodded slowly. "I've seen emails. She's been pushing Val to close fast. Says your family's too sentimental and might change their minds. Will you help?" She hesitated, then pulled out a flash drive. "I can't give you everything, but I can give you this." Back home, we plugged in the drive. Dozens of emails. Schedules, Zoom screenshots. Even a fake neighborhood petition Noelle had drafted, supposedly signed by concerned neighbors. Most names were fake. One was literally Mickey M. "You know what this is," Cass said, barely breathing. "Everything. 2 nights before the wedding, we held a war room session in my living room. Cass laid out a game plan. We leaked the story to the reporter you mentioned, but not all of it, just enough to rattle her. Then what Eli asked. We bring the rest to the rehearsal dinner, in front of investors, in front of family, and we bury her," I said, voice steady. I looked around. My house, my rules. Noelle lit the match. But I'd bring the fire. The night before Noelle's rehearsal dinner, I slept 4 hours tops. Not from nerves adrenaline. I had all the pieces, permits, forged signatures, the fake complaints, Leah's flash drive. The reporter had already confirmed publication for the following morning. It would drop at 9 a.m., right before her 6 p.m. rehearsal dinner. She wouldn't see it coming. At 8:56, I refreshed the site again. At 9:01, the headline was up. "Heir to historic home evicted by family scheme backed by developer bride-to-be." Underneath, scanned documents. Quotes from Leah. Even a blurry city council screenshot showing Noelle making statements under a pseudonym. By 10 a.m. it had over 15,000 shares. My inbox was exploding. Cass read one comment aloud. "This is like a live-action soap opera and I'm here for it." I smirked. She wanted an empire. I brought receipts. My phone buzzed. It was Mom. "Riley, we need to talk. Noelle's having a meltdown." I didn't answer. Instead, I got dressed. Tonight I was going to burn it all down with truth. The venue was a vineyard estate, exactly the kind of place where people pretended they weren't panicking while sipping overpriced wine. Cass and I arrived early. Leah met us in the parking lot carrying a slim leather briefcase. "You sure about this?" she asked. "I've never been more sure of anything." Inside the room looked like a Pinterest board had thrown up fairy lights, muted gold accents, soft jazz, and a seating chart with my name curiously missing. "I'm not invited to the inner dinner," I said. "You are now," Leah replied, flipping the name cards. Mine slid neatly into the head table, right across from Noelle. She saw me the second I walked in. Her expression froze somewhere between panic and a Botoxed smile. "Riley," she said tightly, "didn't expect you tonight." "I bet." "Don't make a scene," she warned. Not my style. The first toast came from her dad Marcus, the same man who notarized the forged permits. He was 3 sentences into his speech about legacy and community when I stood up. "Sorry to interrupt," I said loud and clear, "but I think the guests deserve to know what kind of legacy this really is." Gasps, phones subtly lifted, heads turned. Marcus froze. Noelle's wine glass cracked in her hand. I stepped forward, sliding a folder down the table. "This," I said, "is a demolition permit filed months ago for my home before I was evicted." Murmurs spread like wildfire. "And this," I held up a second sheet, "is a notarized page with your father's signature, Mr. Vane, falsely confirming consent from my parents." Consent they never knowingly gave. Leah opened her briefcase. "We also have the emails. The ones where Noelle and her fiancé discuss the profit margins and the lie they told to push the sale." One investor stood up. "You said the property was clear, that the family had no objections." Noelle's voice cracked. "She's lying." Another guest, "This article says otherwise." "Photos don't lie," I said. "Neither do planning records." Her fiancé Val looked ready to puke. "You told me it was just a misunderstanding," he hissed at her. "You said we'd handle it," she shot back. Leah chimed in. "Val, I'd suggest you sit down. You're on every email chain, including the one where you said, and I quote, 'Riley's emotionally attached, but money talks.'" The room was dead silent, until my mom stood. "We didn't know," she said, trembling. "We were told Riley was in over her head." I turned to her. "You believed her lies over my work, my life." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Are you sorry enough to rescind the eviction?" "Yes," my dad said, stepping beside her, effective immediately. I nodded once, then turned to Noelle. "This was never about money. This was about control. You thought you could scare me, discredit me, silence me. You don't understand." "I do. I understand exactly what you are." I slid one final envelope toward her. "This is a copy of the complaint being filed tomorrow with the City Ethics Board. Fraud, perjury, conflict of interest." She knocked over her wine. "You'll regret this," she spat. I smiled. "No, I won't, but you might." Outside under the vineyard's fairy lights, I exhaled for the first time in months. Leah sat beside me. "You were surgical in there." She underestimated me. "Most people do," she said softly. Inside, guests were still buzzing. The wedding was unofficially off. Val's family had pulled their funding. Cass walked up grinning. "So want to celebrate?" "I already am." My phone buzzed an email from the reporter. The city had launched an investigation. Noelle's permits were under review, and the development project suspended indefinitely. Back home, I poured a glass of red wine, stood in the middle of my kitchen, and looked around. Everything I fought for was still here, and so was I. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Hope it was worth it. You just made a powerful enemy." I blocked the number and smiled, because I had something better than power. I had the truth, and it was loud. 3 weeks after the rehearsal dinner disaster, I stood in front of a courtroom podium. Noelle sat at the defense table, flanked by 2 lawyers who looked like they charged by the syllable. She wouldn't look at me. Not that I needed her to. I wasn't there to convince her. I was there to confirm everything. Forgery, fraud, intent to mislead a public entity. The judge reviewed the stack of documents, city plans, notarization records, Leah's emails, and testimony from Liz at the records office. When he looked up, his tone was flat professional. "Miss Vane, this case will proceed to formal investigation. In the meantime, all development permits associated with Eldon Group and this property are hereby frozen. And if the documents submitted are indeed falsified," he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Noelle's lawyer whispered something urgent in her ear. Her hands were shaking. Leah met me outside the courtroom, phone in hand. "Val just stepped down from the board," she said, not hiding her satisfaction. "The investors fled like rats." I smiled. "Can't build an empire on a lie?" "You could have let it go," she said, "but you didn't." "I almost did," I admitted, but then she threw a brick through my window. Back home, the brick sat on my kitchen counter, now paperweight, now symbol. Cass walked in holding cupcakes. "Guess what day it is?" I raised an eyebrow. "Please don't say Redemption Day." "Even better, your birthday again." A full year since it all began. This time no eviction notices, no fake smiles, no sabotage wrapped in silver ribbon. Just friends, real family, peace. Eli showed up carrying wood, still fixing that back porch, remember? I thought you were done. Val promised to help, he said with a smirk, but I told him he'd have to settle for donating the lumber. Where's Mom and Dad? They're bringing a surprise. Cue my anxiety. 15 minutes later, they pulled into the driveway. My dad lugged out a dusty box. My mum carried a canvas-wrapped frame. This belonged to Grandma, she said gently. We found it in the attic last week. I peeled back the cover. It was a hand-drawn floor plan my house, but not as it was today, as it once was. Faded pencil lines, handwritten labels, front parlour, coal storage, sunroom. She drew it herself before renovating in the 70s, Mum said. She wrote your name on the back, in case the house ever passed to you. Tears burned hot. I thought you didn't want me here, I whispered. We were wrong, Dad said. Noelle convinced us you were drowning. Turns out you were just swimming against the tide. I hugged them, not because everything was perfect, but because it didn't have to be. Later that night I stood in the garden. The jasmine my grandmother planted decades ago had bloomed again. Despite the chaos, despite the threats, despite Noelle. Some roots don't break. Eli came out holding 2 glasses of whiskey. You did it, he said. No, I replied, we did. Cass joined us with her phone. You need to see this, she said, grinning. It was a live stream. Noelle crying, mascara-streaked, babbling about betrayal and family snakes, and how truth is subjective. The comments section was brutal. She's officially entered villain meltdown mode, Cass said. Leah messaged me seconds later. Her PR team just dropped her. Karma's got wheels. I laughed harder than I had in months. I'm not even mad, I said. It's almost poetic. But still, Cass added, I kind of hope she steps on a Lego barefoot. By week's end, the official paperwork came through. The house was mine, fully, irrevocably. The notarization from the 80s had been located, naming me as secondary heir if any renovations were made under my expense. And guess who had legally signed off every permit I'd filed over the years? Yours truly. It was airtight. I hosted a neighbourhood potluck that weekend. People brought food memories and photo albums. Mrs. Kelso brought a tray of deviled eggs and a story about my grandmother fixing her fence during a thunderstorm in 1991. She was a storm herself, she said, like you. I didn't argue. 2 months later, Leah visited with folders. What's this, I asked. A proposal, she said. I took over Val's position on the board. We're starting a preservation fund for homeowners to save houses like yours, not replace them. I flipped through the plan. Grants, partnerships, restorative architecture. It was everything Noelle claimed she cared about, but done right. I want you to be on the advisory board, Leah said. Help people who didn't have a Cass or an Eli. I nodded. I'm in. That night I sat on the porch. Cup of tea, dog curled at my feet, jasmine dancing in the breeze. I looked at the house not as something I fought for, but something I kept. And as the wind chimes sang over the fence and laughter echoed from the backyard, I realized something. Noelle tried to erase me, but all she did was help me rewrite the story. My way. With truth, with roots, with peace. This was more than revenge. It was redemption. And the foundation, unshakable. Story 3. You're going to flip when you see what's in the driveway. That's what my little brother texted me last Friday. So there I was pulling up to our parents' place after a hellish 12-hour shift, tired, cranky, sweaty, hoping for maybe a decent meal or at least a cold beer. Instead, I pull into the driveway and nearly slam the brakes. A matte black Tesla Cybertruck, fully loaded, still had the dealership tags on it. I sat there blinking like an idiot engine idling because what the actual F... And then out bounces Jake, my brother, barefoot, shirtless, hyped like he just won the lottery. Pretty sick, huh? I told you I was going to level up this year. This guy, the same dude who dropped out of 3 colleges, tried becoming a Twitch streamer, a crypto guru, then recently went viral for a fake homeless prank on TikTok that almost got him cancelled. He was now posing like Elon Musk in front of a car that costs more than my life savings. I hadn't even gotten out of my car yet. Where'd you get the money, Jake? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Oh, chill, Viv. Mom and Dad helped me figure it out. It's all good. My stomach dropped. No freaking way. Mom stepped outside at that exact moment, holding a glass of rosé like she was starring in a Real Housewives spin-off. Dad followed behind her, grinning like this was some family sitcom moment. I was waiting for someone to say surprise, maybe tell me they bought the car for me. Lol, yeah, no. Sweetie, Mom said Jake's been trying so hard. He's building his brand, he needs to project success. So you drained the emergency fund, I asked, my voice way calmer than I felt. They blinked. Guilt flashed across Dad's face. Mom sipped her wine. We thought it was for the family. Let me pause here. That emergency fund wasn't some communal piggy bank. It was the account I set up 5 years ago for all of us, yes, but with my money. Every bonus, every freelance check, every goddamn birthday envelope I never spent went into that account. That was my down payment, my shot at buying my own place in LA before rent murdered me. Gone, wiped clean, 60 grand. WTF. You didn't even call me Ask Text. Jake shrugged, like he didn't just vaporize 5 years of budgeting. You always say family first, right? I just thought you wouldn't mind. I laughed, loud, sharp, one of those laughs that sounds like it belongs to someone else. Mom put a hand on my shoulder. Vivian, honey, he's your brother. He's had a rough year. I'm sorry, does his rough year include getting banned from Uber for mooning the camera? Nobody laughed, not even Jake. We can rebuild the fund, Mom said quickly. You're so good with money, you'll bounce back. I didn't save that money so I could prove how resilient I am. I saved it to get out, to have something that was mine. Silence. My hands were shaking when I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app. Yep, $138.47 left in the account. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. Instead, I scrolled down to the linked accounts section, saw Dad's credit card, Mom's Nordstrom line, Jake's Venmo, all under my name, all draining my lifeblood for years. I just never paid attention. Not anymore. Viv, Dad started, let's not blow this out of. Nah, we're way past blowing it out of proportion. I hit call. Bank rep picked up. Hi, this is Vivian Moore. I'd like to freeze and close all accounts tied to this number, effective immediately. Wait, Vivian, Mom was lunging at me. I stepped back. You don't get to touch my money anymore. None of you do. Jake crossed his arms, smirked. Wow, so dramatic. No, Jake, you bought a car with my life. I'm just finally taking it back. He muttered something under his breath. I didn't care. I was already walking back to my car. As I slid into the driver's seat, Mom banged on the window. You're destroying this family. I didn't destroy anything, I said through the glass. I just stopped paying for the illusion. Then I drove off. 2 blocks down, I pulled over. My hands were still trembling, adrenaline rage, disbelief. I needed someone to hear this, to feel this with me. I called Bryce. My best friend since college, tech guy, good at digging into shady transactions and keeping my head on straight. He picked up on the second ring. What's up, Viv? Remember when you said I should stop enabling them? Yeah. I just did something nuclear. Hell yes. You want me to bring over whiskey or the laptop? Both. I exhaled for the first time all day. This wasn't revenge, not yet. This was the beginning. That night felt like war prep. I showed up at Bryce's apartment with 2 bags, one with the bottle of bourbon I promised to open on my first housewarming, the one that now felt like a joke, and the other, my laptop receipts, a decade of tax returns, and every login credential I could remember. We didn't even say hi, just sat, poured drinks, and opened the spreadsheets. All right, Bryce said, cracking his knuckles. Let's follow the money. I'd always known I was the responsible one, that I paid more than I should, lent money that never came back, signed things I probably shouldn't have. But I didn't know it was this bad. Every line of data Bryce pulled felt like a slap. Tiny transfers, $25 here, $80 there, monthly, for years. Venmo, PayPal, credit cards, auto-pays, Amazon charges from places I didn't shop, all wrapped in my name or routed through joint accounts I forgot even existed. Jesus, Viv, they've been bleeding you dry. I feel like a damn idiot. You weren't an idiot. You were loyal. There's a difference. I didn't respond. I just scrolled. Found a $2,400 payment to a private school. Not mine. Not any of my nieces. Jake never finished college, so what the hell? That's weird, I said. Bryce leaned over. No way. They used your name to co-sign Jake's last-minute online degree scam. Look. He pointed at the application info. I never signed that, ever. Well, someone did, and the IP address tracks back to their house. I stared at the screen. My face felt hot, like lava under my skin. He used me to get a fake degree. You're not going to like this part either, Bryce said, flipping tabs. You're still listed as co-signer on the Tesla loan. He what? With your credit score, they probably got better terms. I had to stand up, walk to the window. My hands were fists. This wasn't just betrayal. This was identity theft. Years of trust gone, and all of it behind my back with smiling faces and family dinners and "we're so proud of you" crap. I wasn't the ATM, I was the goddamn credit plan. Bryce clicked a few more things. Found something else. They refinanced the condo last month. You're listed as a secondary guarantor. Nope, I definitely did not sign anything for that. Then it's forged, straight up fraud. I sat down hard, my whole body felt heavy. They weren't just dipping into my savings. They were using my name, my future, like it was monopoly money. And I let them. I kept smiling and showing up and writing checks because that's what you do for family, right? Wrong, Viv Bryce said gently. You've got a case, like a real one. You could go to the cops with this. Yeah, I whispered. But I know how this goes. They'll say it's a misunderstanding. That I agreed verbally or I don't remember giving permission. Not if you beat them at their own game. He spun the laptop toward me. Let's build a case. Not just feelings. Evidence, timeline, documents, emails, transactions, every signature, every lie. And so we did. For the next 4 hours, we built a digital war chest, labeled folders, saved screenshots, highlighted names, made timelines. It felt good, like breathing after drowning, like finally doing something that wasn't just surviving. By 2 a.m. we had a 40-page PDF and a spreadsheet tracking every cent they'd stolen. Total $312,429. That number broke something in me. Not because it was huge, but because every single dollar had a memory. That $50 birthday check I didn't cash. The raise I didn't celebrate because it went to Dad's medical bill. The dream house I didn't buy because I was too busy being their safety net. I looked at Bryce. You think I should actually do it. Viv, they didn't just screw you over, they stole your life. You owe it to yourself to push back. I nodded, slowly, my spine straightened in real time. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about telling the truth. The next morning I emailed the bank. Told them I believed my identity had been used fraudulently on 3 loans. Attached documents, copies of my ID, signature comparisons. I CC'd their fraud department, and a lawyer Bryce found who specialised in financial abuse. By 10 a.m. I had an auto-reply. By noon the bank froze the accounts. By 2 p.m. my mom called, 6 times. I didn't answer. Then came the text. Vivian, what's happening? We can't access anything. Dad's cards aren't working. Please call. Jake is freaking out. I stared at it, and for the first time ever I didn't feel guilty. Just done. Then my boss Garrett called. I wasn't expecting that. Vivian, sorry to call early. I just got a strange application from someone claiming to know you. Okay. Name's Jake Moore. Says he's your brother. Used you as a reference. Claims he has a business degree and worked with you on financial analysis. I laughed out loud. Garrett, he's a TikTok influencer who thinks liquidity is a cocktail. That's what I thought. I flagged the app, but thought you should know. Thank you. And Garrett, I might need to take a personal day. Maybe 2. Take the week. And Vivian, if there's anything I can do, say the word. Click. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling. My little brother, the golden boy who never held a job longer than a semester, tried to ride my career to legitimacy. They weren't just stealing, they were rewriting the story, making themselves the heroes of my life. No, not anymore. I opened the voice memo app and hit record. My name is Vivian Moore. Today is March 5th. This is the beginning of a formal report. I am documenting over $300K in unauthorized usage of my financial identity by members of my immediate family. I didn't stop until I got it all down. Then I texted Eliza, my realtor bestie. You up for some legal revenge energy today? She replied in 0.3 seconds. Hell, yes, I'm bringing croissants and subpoena templates. I smiled for the first time in days. Game on. 3 days later, I stood outside my parents' house again, not because I wanted to, but because it was time. I'd gotten the email that morning the bank was pursuing fraud charges. My lawyer wanted my full statement in person. And the financial investigator, he wanted confirmation from the source. So here I was, standing on the stupid stone path Jake nearly cracked his skull skateboarding on when he was 11, holding a folder full of receipts and betrayal. Eliza parked behind me. "You sure about this?" "Nope," I said, "but it's time." We walked up together. I rang the bell. Mum opened the door like she'd been waiting for hours. Her face was pale eyes puffy. She looked wrecked. "Vivian," she whispered, voice cracking. "Thank God. We've been calling." "Don't," I said, holding up a hand. "Not here to talk it out, just here to deliver something." She opened the door wider. Inside, Jake was pacing like a caged animal, muttering into his phone. Dad sat on the couch, silent, staring at nothing. The second Jake saw me, he exploded. "What the hell is your problem? You froze our accounts, you called the bank." "Yeah," I said calmly, "because you stole from me." "It was for you," Mom said, stepping between us. "We did everything to help this family stay afloat." "By committing fraud." I dropped the manila folder onto the coffee table like a mic. "Here's everything you've forged under my name. Cosigns, credit pools, loan apps, signatures that aren't mine, IP logs. You used me as your own personal FICO score." Dad finally looked up. "Vivian, it was never meant to go this far." "You mean getting caught?" "Yeah, I bet." Jake snatched the folder and started flipping through it. "This is crazy. You're ruining everything." "No, Jake, you ruined it. You burned through 3 careers, 5 jobs, a dozen handouts, and now a 6-figure car you couldn't afford on my name, on my back. For what clout?" He glared at me like I'd slapped him. "You always thought you were better than us." "No," I said. "I thought I had a family. Turns out I had 3 roommates who thought I was a walking credit card." Mom was crying now, real tears, but I didn't move, because for once I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. "Vivian, please," she sobbed. "Your father's blood pressure's through the roof. Jake's car might be repossessed. The condo was refinanced using a forged signature," I cut in. "Yeah, I know, the bank knows, and they're moving forward with charges." Jake's face went white. "You wouldn't." "I already did." Silence. "You're dead to me," Jake said. His voice shook, but not from sadness, from rage, like I'd broken his trust. "Cool," I said. "You've been a ghost in my life for years anyway." Dad stood up. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. "We're your family. You don't throw family to the wolves." "I didn't throw you," I said. "I just stopped cushioning your fall." Eliza cleared her throat behind me. "Time's up. We need to go. Legal counsel said don't stay more than 15 minutes. I turned toward the door. "You'll be served this week. Do not contact me again unless it's through your attorney." "Vivian, wait." Mom reached for my arm. And I froze. Because for a split second, I saw the woman who used to braid my hair before school. The woman who used to read me bedtime stories in that sing-song voice. But then I remembered the texts, the lies, the years of watching her protect Jake while telling me to be the bigger person. I pulled my arm back. "You taught me loyalty," I said softly. "But never boundaries. I'm learning now." And I walked out. No screaming, no slamming doors. Just silence, heavy, final. That night they blew up my phone. Texts, voicemails, emails, some angry, some begging, some guilt-trippy AF. "You're tearing this family apart. We just needed a little help. Jake's life is ruined now. Are you happy?" Then came the GoFundMe link. I stared at the screen, slack-jawed. "Please help the Moore family recover from unjust legal attacks from within. Our daughter is mentally unwell and has misunderstood years of love as manipulation." WTF. They really went public with it. I forwarded the link to my lawyer and the bank's fraud department, then reported the fundraiser as fraud. "You okay?" Bryce asked, texting me a screenshot of Jake's latest Instagram story. It was a black square with the words, "Some people are just built to betray," written in white Comic Sans. "Yeah," I typed back. "I'm good. Just watching them crumble in 4K. Karma's got a good resolution?" 2 days later, I got the call. Detective Ramirez from Financial Crimes. Sharp, straight to the point. "Miss Moore, we've reviewed the evidence. You've got a solid identity theft case. Arrest warrants will be issued by end of week. Are you prepared for the fallout?" "They made the mess," I said. "They can sit in it." He chuckled. "I like your style. We'll keep you updated." The next morning, Eliza showed up with more coffee and less chill. "So, how's it feel to be the main character this week?" Honestly, like I'm finally off mute. We sat on the balcony, quiet for a bit. You ever wish they'd just said sorry, she asked. All the time, I admitted, but they never will. Because that would mean admitting they saw me as useful, not loved. Screw them! Yeah, screw them. And we toasted to that. By the end of the week, the story broke. Local paper ran the headline, LA family under investigation for fraudulent use of daughter's financial identity. My phone exploded. Old co-workers, classmates, cousins. Viv, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Is there anything you need? But my favourite message came from Garrett. The board saw your statement. The way you handled this calmly, professionally, and with receipts, they're offering you a promotion. Senior risk analyst. You earned it. I just sat there blinking. The girl who used to clip coupons and make fake real estate vision boards. Now she was getting promoted while her family got indicted. Poetic. The courthouse smelled like burnt coffee and paperwork. That weird mix of cold air conditioning and everyone's nerves packed into one fluorescent lit hallway. It was arraignment day. My parents and Jake had been arrested the day before, booked on identity theft fraud and conspiracy to defraud a financial institution. And let me tell you, seeing my family's names on a legal docket wild. Eliza sat next to me, clutching a folder labelled Impact Statement Draft 3. Bryce stood leaning against the wall, arms crossed, eyes on every movement like we were in a spy thriller. I wasn't nervous, not really. I was pissed, tired, ready. They're bringing them in now, a court officer said, pushing open the double doors. And just like that, there they were. Jake looking like a frat boy who got caught cheating on the final. Mom in a cardigan 2 sizes too big, acting like this was a PTA meeting. Dad hollowed out, no tie, just defeat stitched into every wrinkle. I didn't blink. They scanned the room and saw me. Mom's face crumpled. Jake glared like I'd run over his dog. Dad looked embarrassed. Not sorry, just caught. They were seated. Their lawyer, some guy with too much gel and not enough integrity, stood up first. Your Honour, my clients intend to plead not guilty at this time. Of course they did. The prosecution has compiled substantial evidence, the DA said. Bank statements, forged documents, digital trails, and statements from the victim, Ms. Vivian Moore. The judge turned to me. Ms. Moore, will you be submitting a victim impact statement? Yes, Your Honour. My voice didn't shake, not once. They scheduled the next hearing and adjourned. As the room emptied, Jake shouted at me, You think you're better than us. No, I said, I think I'm done pretending you didn't screw me over. The bailiff stepped between us before it got ugly. Outside reporters were waiting, actual cameras, a local news van. Ms. Moore, any comment? I looked straight at the lens. Family doesn't mean immunity, it means accountability. I'm just asking for that. Click, flash, boom. And I walked away. A week later, the hearing room was packed. People I didn't even know came to watch. Former neighbours, people from church. A guy I vaguely recognised from high school whispered, Damn, she really did it. I sat up front with Eliza and Bryce. The prosecutor stood and opened with, This case isn't just about stolen money. It's about stolen trust, stolen identity, a daughter who gave everything to her family and got betrayal in return. Then the judge nodded at me. Ms. Moore, you may read your statement. I stood. 3 pages, double-spaced, highlighted sections. I'd practiced it 10 times, but when I opened my mouth, I didn't need the script. Your Honour, my name is Vivian Moore. I'm here not just as a victim of financial fraud, but of something deeper. Lifelong manipulation dressed up as love. I didn't grow up rich, but I grew up believing love meant sacrifice. So I worked. I paid bills. I covered rent. I bailed them out of overdrafts, backed their loans, put dreams on hold, all in the name of being a good daughter. Until one day I checked my bank account and found it empty. Not just empty, drained. Not just financially, but emotionally, morally. My own brother bought a Tesla while I cried over losing my future. Jake squirmed. Good. They didn't ask. They assumed that I'd clean up, that I'd stay quiet, that I'd never call it what it was, theft. And you know what's worse than being stolen from being gaslit into thinking you owe them for it? Mom cried. Dad looked like he wanted to disappear. I didn't stop. I'm not here out of revenge. I'm here because I believe in consequences. I believe that people should answer for what they break, even if they share your last name. I stepped back. Silence. The judge cleared his throat. Thank you, Ms. Moore. That was impactful. Yeah, you could say that. After that, things moved fast. The prosecutor dropped an email on the defense confirmation of forged documents, 3 new witnesses, a lone officer who said Jake called pretending to be me. Their plea deal crumbled. Their lawyer requested a continuance. The judge denied it. Outside cameras again, someone asked if I'd forgive them. Forgiveness isn't free, I said. They can earn it, but not today. That night, I got a text from Jake's burner account. Classic Jake move. Hope you're happy. You broke Mom. I didn't respond. I blocked the number. 2 weeks later, Mum called from a jail phone. I picked up, out of curiosity, out of whatever was left of my heart. Vivian, she whispered, please, this isn't who we are. It's exactly who you are, Mom. You just didn't expect to get caught. We needed help. Then you should have asked. We thought we raised you better. I almost laughed. You didn't raise me. You used me. Click, I hung up. I didn't cry. Instead, I made dinner, fed the cat, finished my report for Garrett, then checked the Zillow link Eliza sent a new listing in Pasadena with a view and hardwood floors. A month later, sentencing day. Jake pleaded guilty. Mom and Dad followed. Jake 3 years. Mom 18 months. Dad 2 years probation plus restitution. They got off lighter than they should have. But for the first time in my life, I was the one walking out the front door, not them. No guilt, no debt, no shadow on my name. Outside, I found Eliza waiting with keys in hand. Your new place is ready. Want to see it? I nodded. We drove in silence. No radio. Just the sound of the road and the weight lifting off me mile by mile.